podcast all about cultivating fruits and vegetables and the sustainable lifestyle that comes along with it. We are your hosts, Colin and Mitchell, and we are so excited you chose to join us today. We have a very special topic today, another lifestyle video. We're going to be talking about kind of our daily nutritional basis, basically. What is our routine and how do we cover all the different parts of our health? And we once again are so happy you joined us. So go ahead and grab a cup of coffee and let's get into it. All right, guys. So as we said, we're covering everything today. Got a little different setup today. Setup in the garden outside. Hopefully the audio is just as good. But if you hear a background noise, see some stuff going on, just forgive that, as this is our first time trying that out. For our friends just listening, obviously, hopefully it all sounds the same. All right, guys. So getting started here, we're going to kind of start at the beginning of the day, how we start our days, and what we feel are the important aspects that we cover in our own health protocols. So starting off the day, kind of the first thing that we both do is some deliberate sun exposure. So this is obviously tied in probably with most of us through visiting our gardens. That's at least what it is for me, going out, checking all my plants kind of as soon as the sun comes up, making sure I'm getting them watered early in the day. It's the best time to water, early or late in the day. For anything that I don't have set up on irrigation, we're doing that. I'm turning on the irrigation for those other things and making sure that I'm kind of gazing towards the horizon at that time. As you can see behind me, there are some hills in my area for those of us who are watching. And so we kind of got to wait for the sun to creep over those hills. And then I come outside and make sure that, I'm kind of obviously not staring directly at the sun, but making sure that I am getting that exposure, because it helps many, many things, like your circadian rhythm, obviously helping you sleep better at night with that, but also things like dopamine release and, just waking your body up, feeling better in the mornings. So what about you, Mitchell? What's the first sort of thing you tackle in the day?
Yeah, definitely the sunlight is fantastic. Like you said, I'm glad you mentioned the circadian rhythm. Good to get that going in the morning with the sunlight. So then towards the end of the day, your body naturally gets tired whenever the sun goes down, and it makes it easier to sleep. And as well with the sunlight in the morning, we both heard of this first from someone called Andrew Huberman, who has a podcast called Huberman Lab. And that is very fantastic. I listened to it on Spotify. It's kind of like what we're talking about today, where he talks about health, tips to improve your health. He has tips for improving like exercising, for mental health, all sorts of stuff. So that's a little bit gave us the idea for this type of episode. But yeah, that's not the very first thing that I do in the morning, but very, very close to it. The past 2-3 months maybe or so, I've liked to start the day with a cold shower just to really wake me up. I only do a couple minutes. I don't do it very long at all. Basically, once after the initial shock and I'm kind of getting used to it, then I'll just get out. But I really like it for that initial shock. They've shown that it can help it basically increases your dopamine for the whole day. It helps you feel a little more motivated. And then once I do that, I'll weigh myself before I shower. But after showering, yeah, getting out in the sunlight, watering your plants, like you said, it's something very easy to do. It gives you a good reason to go outside. And as well, like moving your compost while you're out there. And I like to do as well, recently I've just been doing a little jump rope in the morning just to kind of get the heart going too and wake up. And here soon, hopefully, I'll have even more reason to go outside whenever I get chickens, so I can go check on them every morning and be very satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple things you brought up that I really liked was, the routine of this. Like if you can build in things like, exciting hobbies like gardening or, pet care that kind of force you to do some of these things just out of necessity for, not only yourself and your health, like we're talking about today, but also for the care of these other things and the continuation of this hobby that you really like. So that's sort of the advantage of having like really positive hobbies, including all of the things that we mentioned. So let's go ahead and get right into kind of what you were talking about with the cold exposure and things like that. But first, I always pair that with exercise. So let's start with the exercise part of that. So in the
Mhm.
mornings, is when I like to do my exercise for a few reasons. So there's a natural rhythm of our body to release a hormone called cortisol, which is sort of a stress hormone. Also, I think it's known as the fight or flight hormone. So it can be,
Mhm.
just something that causes us anxiety or stress. The body has to release that. So through exercise or physical activity, let's just say of any sort, we choose to release that cortisol as opposed to allowing our body to kind of sneak up on us. It's time now to be anxious, or it's time now to, fight or
Mhm.
flight. And because of that, then it's just much more productive. You feel better, and you're not worn out by this constant, like, when's it going to happen? Right. So you choose. So let me talk about a few different ways that this kind of manifests in my schedule. So a few days a week, we'll be going for a run in the morning. I love these early morning runs. I now live out in the country, and I do fear a little bit. I used to do the kind of the beat the sun run, like right as the sun was rising, we go out and we do a mile or something, but or on the bike, even further back used to do that. Really enjoyed that when I lived like in a more suburban area. But now that I'm out here in the country with like there's deer, all over the place, and obviously with those deer come, larger predators on a more rare basis, but also people are letting their dogs out, in these larger fields with no fences, and some of them are, actually most
Mhm.
of them are fairly aggressive on the property line to things kind of running by. So
Yeah.
kind of have to wait a little longer than I'd want to, but I do really enjoy those early morning runs. And if I'm not doing an early morning run, then I'm doing your classic weight training. Getting excuse me, more into calisthenics lately, the body weight exercises. So using mainly jump rope, pull up bar, push ups of many different variations to work a lot of the upper body and chest. And then as well as like body weight squats and other activities that we talked about with like the running. What is that called? Calisthenics, or no, not aerobics,
uh,
but
Anaerobic.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
aerobic is running, anaerobic is weightlifting, right?
Okay, so I'm
I
thinking
think it's.
of
I always mix them up.
cardio. I was just thinking of the word cardio. I
Oh,
don't know why it took me so
oh, I
long to
got you.
come up with it, but yeah,
I
just the
couldn't think of
cardio
it either.
exercises as well. Kind of as a secondary focus on the legs because I do like running. So anyway, we're hitting that in the morning. Uh, if not that, those things, I then a few days a week. So we're probably weightlifting, 4 days a week, running, let's say 2 to 3, and then the other 1 to 2, let's say. Sometimes I do sauna in conjunction with working out, but sauna is the other thing I want to mention. So I crank my sauna up as high as it goes, which it's not, and I wouldn't recommend that for anybody starting out, but I'm really trying to get those higher temperatures. It's a steam situation, so I guess not technically a sauna, but a steam room. We're doing that, um, trying to get that, 2 or 3 times a week, 20-minute sessions, and then
Hmm.
kind of combining that with the cold exposure afterwards. I also do the cold exposure after my run, so we're getting cold exposure, you know, 3 to 5 days a week, let's say. And I just have a tank out in my backyard that I try to get. If I'm doing the cold exposure, let's do it early in the day before the water has a chance to warm up. And here, soon as it is warming up, this is sort of our first week where it's really been nice outside here in my zone, which is like zone 9, 9B to be more specific. So soon I will have to start adding like ice to that to get to the temperatures that I really prefer.
Oof.
So that's sort of just a overview of what I'm trying to shoot for on a weekly basis. As you can tell, there's like some fluctuation in that. Some weeks are focused more on one aspect than the other, but I find that a combination of all these things, um, keeps me feeling good and lively. So let's talk through your routine, Mitchell.
Yep. Yeah, that's. I mean, very similar here because we've talked about this, just off the podcast, of course, of what kind of fitness things we like to do. But and a lot of this we pulled from, I'll mention again, the Huberman Lab podcast, where he has a fitness protocol. So he kind of gives his optimal fitness routine, and it's worked very well for us. So me as well, I like to run. I do one good run at least during the week, 30-40 minutes, and then I'll have another day where I do like a bit of a longer but not as intense run. And then also so sort of like a hike basically is a really good option for that. Or also I'll do yoga possibly instead, so like an hour hot yoga session. Colin and I've done yoga for a very long time. It's just very nice. It helps keep you flexible, and if you're weightlifting during the week, it helps stretch out those muscles and decreases your soreness from that. One day a week, I'll do a HIIT workout, which is high intensity interval training. So basically, you want to try to get your heart rate almost as high as you safely can. I like the Airdyne bike at the YMCA. So if you have one of those at your Y, give it a try, and you'll see how tough it really is, because it kills me every single time. Or you could just do sprints like in your backyard. You don't need a whole lot of equipment to do a HIIT workout. And then weightlifting about 3 times a week so that I can hit each body part. So one day is like legs, one day is upper body, more so just like chest and back, and then one day is like your extremities. So my arms, I'll do a little workout for my neck, a little bit of abs I'll do on that day, and then like calves. So kind of the smaller muscles of the legs rather than quads or the hamstrings. I think it's important to take a day or two completely devoted to rest as well. And on the rest day, like Colin talked about, you can do the heat and cold exposure. It's very good to help the muscles relax and rest up for the rest of the week, which is going to be more working out. um, and I just want to emphasize that as well. Rest is very, very, very important. I mean, if you're working out really hard, that's great. But if you're not giving your time body to rest and repair, you're just going to go like in a downward spiral. You need time to build back up before you start expending that energy again. And just to mention a quick little segment on supplements. Um, Obviously, we are not doctors. We cannot recommend anything, but creatine for working out is the number one supplement I would recommend. Just helps your muscles be a little fuller. It'll give you a little more power at the gym, and there's basically no side effects, in my opinion. And just two other really small ones that I think are really important, though: fish oil and vitamin D. Here, especially in Indiana during the winter, it's cloudy almost every single day, and you don't want to be outside because it's super cold. So my vitamin D levels drop very much in the winter. So I make sure to load up on the vitamin D, and then I'll take it as well during spring, summer, and fall, just not as much as I do in the winter. And I'll just say lastly, like Colin said, I think calisthenics are very fun. So pull-ups, push-ups, things like that. And I am working on doing a muscle up, but I am not there yet. But once I do, this podcast will know about it. I'll be sure to say.
Yeah, man, those are tough. I saw somebody explain, like, I feel like a lot of it is actually technique with the muscle up. Like
Yeah,
you
you got to
probably
kind of
have the power
swing.
you need, but it's just
Uh-huh.
about the motion
Practice.
is unique.
I'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. So let's transition a little bit into another important aspect of health overall, which is sort of the mental health. We could call it spiritual health. Um,
Mhm.
this includes things like social activities, which we're not going to talk about today. Just to say anything on it is just hanging out with friends on a regular basis, making sure that you're part of social groups, things like that. Um, okay, but what we are going to talk about is not only the social side, but then the mental health side. So something that we implement for that is not only working out. I mean, let's talk about the extreme advantages of working out for the mental health.
Mm-hmm.
aspect of health, which we talked about the cortisol levels. That has a lot to do with it, lowering stress overall, but also things like meditation. This is something that Mitchell and I have done, on and off for a long time, but here probably for the past 3 to 5 years fairly consistently. Um, Implementing this usually in the morning in my daily routine, after the sun exposure, somewhere around there, before I start my day, getting into whatever needs to be accomplished for the day. We'll try to do 10 to 15 minutes meditation. If I'm really in a rush, 5 minutes, but always making a little bit of time for it.
Mm-hmm.
What I find this does is it's just a process of like training the brain for me. So just saying, okay, we're going to take time to shut off, basically, to quiet everything, to try and quiet as many of the thoughts as possible, you know, everything we can. We're going to try to go back to square one. And that really allows for kind of a clean slate for the day, I find. And that helps me, take on maybe some of the unexpected things that might happen on a daily basis, with whether it's with work or personal life, whatever. Someone cuts you off, whatever it is, right? Any
Mm-hmm.
sort of little unforeseen frustration just kind of helps deal with that a little bit. So what's your opinion on meditation, and Mitchell, and like what do you see the benefits being?
Yeah, very important, like you said. The way I think about it is we exercise physically, like running, weightlifting, and whatnot, but we don't really do anything for our brain. So, like physically. So, I think a meditation is basically like working out for the brain. Every breath you can go through without having your thoughts just go wild is kind of like doing a rep in the gym mentally, is how I always think of it. But yeah, it's important too, just to give yourself some time to chill out, because we live in such a busy world that we don't have that time much anymore, and we don't allow ourselves that time. So it feels really nice to give yourself a few minutes where you can relax and chill out. I like to do it too in the morning. I find I can just focus a bit more in the morning. And I've read too as well that, well, meditation is sort of like a focusing exercise. So you'll find if you meditate for consistently for months or years or whatever, you can kind of, like, you won't react as quickly to things happening to you. You'll think about it a second, like, is acting like this way appropriate in this moment? Am I going to make a fool of myself if I do this? So it helps with that. But so since it's a focusing exercise, you don't want to do it too close to sleep, because it can actually kind of like stimulate your body and make you a little more aware of what's going on. But if you're trying to sleep, you're trying to basically be the opposite. You're trying to be, was it the parasympathetic, I think,
Mm-hmm.
nervous system, where you're more relaxed. But when I meditate, like 5 minutes for sure at a minimum, I think is great. Even if you just stick with that, that's great. It's much better than nothing, of course. But yeah, like 10, 15 minutes, that's a really good day. And when I meditate, I think there's two ways that I find that works best with me. And number one would be just to, you're sitting there with your eyes closed. And then I'm kind of picturing basically like my third eye, quote unquote, third eye, that spot. I forget what, there's a certain brain. I mean, it's your prefrontal cortex. I don't know if there's a specific brain part there, but focusing on that area with your eyes closed, and then anytime your thoughts stray to really anything else, you just acknowledge the thought. Don't be upset at yourself, because it's going to happen. It happens to everybody. Acknowledge that thought, let it go, and then go back to just imagining your third, quote unquote, third eye, and just focusing on your breathing. I don't really try to control my breathing too much, but I usually do like to kind of extend it, let it become a little more shallow, um, or just not as intense. And I like to extend my out breaths as well a little bit compared to the in breaths. And then besides the kind of third eye meditation, I like to do a meditation where you keep your eyes open and you just acknowledge, you're not looking around as you're meditating, but you're just acknowledging, what's going on outside of you. And I feel like when I meditate with my eyes open, it helps ground me a little bit more for the day. If I'm like feeling too much in my head, then when I meditate, I don't want to close my eyes. I'll keep my eyes open. So what kind of method do you find to like meditate technically for you?
Yeah, I'd recommend for beginners, let's start with a guided meditation. Find a video. I think a
Mm-hmm.
5 minute, there is nothing wrong with starting, with a short period of time. This is about enjoying it and seeing positive benefits. Sitting there and struggling, while there is a time for that, isn't the goal. You want to be able to enjoy it. So let's start with a really manageable amount of time, 5 minutes. Go on YouTube, find, a guided meditation that is right, just for what you're feeling. Are you trying to lower stress? Are you trying to chill out? Are you trying to prepare for the day? Right? Well, what's your sort of feeling going into the meditation that you'd like to address? That is a really great way because people will kind of talk you through what later you will do naturally, which is basically, hey, if you're getting distracted, let's focus on the breath. That's the thing we're focusing on, if anything. Or the third eye is another place to focus on. Kind of just keeping the eyes while closed up is sort of how I think of it. Another
Mm-hmm.
visualization that really helped me is the thoughts are like cars passing on a highway or on a street, in your mind. So sort of imagine a street in front of you, you're looking at it perpendicular, and you're seeing these cars drive by. And while you could just look straight, and that's sort of the goal, is like to look past and just allow the cars to drive by, not noticing any one more than the other. You also could look at one as it drives by, and that takes your attention down the road. However, even if you imagine this in your mind, like the road ends at a point, you don't see the car anymore. And so think about that with your mind and your thoughts more specifically during this meditation. Is like, yes, it might be tough to let go of some thoughts, maybe, anxiety or something very serious, or maybe just, whatever, something funny that happened today, or you can't get your dog's, you know, face out of your mind or something. I don't know. you know, uh, just imagine, okay, yes, this is the car I'm looking at right now, but eventually it's going to fade away and we'll come back to the central focus basically. And so that was just a
Mm-hmm.
metaphor that really helped me kind of visualize my thoughts better. Another one used commonly is like the balloon. Like you can look at a balloon, but it'll float too high for you to see, right? Sort of the same idea.
I was
So
gonna say that same exact thing. The balloon analogy is what I always think of.
yeah,
I like
that's a
that
good
one.
one. So those are the main methods I use. It is good to try and do some self-guided meditation eventually, where you're not listening to anything, but just you're able to kind of do it yourself in silence or relative silence, wherever you are. Another method that I kind of use interchangeably with meditation is breath work. So the one specifically is the Wim Hof method that you and I know both use. um, this is one to definitely look into if it's this is the first time you're hearing it. If it's new to you, this is one to look into for sure. Basically some over oxygenation, breathing quite quickly for 30 repetitions. Then we're letting all the air out, holding the breath, because you've just pumped your body full of that oxygen, holding that breath for a predetermined amount of time, usually getting longer with each repetition. um, and then after, let's say, 30 seconds, a minute and a half, then you're taking a large breath in, holding it, and kind of squeezing it then for an additional 15 seconds. That's sort of the Wim Hof method in a nutshell. So this creates a really, really large amount of focus, for in my experience. You have to focus on this constant in and out, and it's tough. It's not natural, right? So you're kind of forcing yourself to do this. And then
Mhm.
it's kind of contrasted by this total silence in these hold moments, or these long times without breathing, or you're breathing in and holding. And those are kind of the very meditative side of things. So if you're having trouble focusing, this is sort of what I do when if I'm feeling like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to sit still. for this 15 minutes or whatever. Well, the Wim Hof is about the video I use is like 11 minutes, so it's perfect, right? Right at that 10-minute, 11-minute mark. Excellent. We're doing that. It's very active. I have something to focus on, in and out, in and out, in and out. And he's also guiding you just like a meditation, but obviously much more actively through this whole process. And by the end, you are ready to go. Like, it really
Mm-hmm.
energizes the body. So that's another thing that I think is equally as beneficial, and definitely a good thing that it's not really talked about in my experience with meditation very closely, but I think they provide a lot of the same sort of properties when used early in the day, preparing you for the day, energizing you for the day, creating this kind of blank slate, ready to handle what's thrown at me attitude. I think they both kind of facilitate that. So what are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just pulled up the Wim Hof on YouTube. Yeah, you're right. It's exactly 11 minutes, 64 million views. So it's nothing
Wow.
crazy. It's fairly popular. Yeah, and people all across the world, I can see in the comments, love it. Um, but yeah, I love, and he's the one. If you haven't really heard of Wim Hof, he's the guy. He hiked. Was it Mount Everest? But he was wearing shorts and he hiked
Yeah,
like a huge snowy mountain. I think he did it
right.
barefoot, possibly too. I mean, he's just a wild. He holds, I think, over 10 world records for stuff like cold exposure and just the crazy hikes that he can do. But yeah, definitely highly recommend that. Love it. Like Colin said, the guided meditations. If you're new to meditating, that's a fantastic option. Guided meditations. That's how I first got into it, and even sometimes now, if I just wake up and I already feel distracted, which happens often, I will do a guided meditation just to kind of ground myself. A good option for that as well. Actually, two options. I have an app called Medito. It's Medito, completely free. It's a meditating app, and it has courses. You start as like a beginner, and it just walks you through everything about how to meditate. There's like dozens of kind of like quote unquote chapters as you go through it and you advance. And then once you go through all the lessons, there's a daily meditation where they have a different meditation every day that you can listen to. So highly recommend that. It's completely free as well. And then Dr. Andrew Huberman, he has a video on YouTube called hashtag NSDR non-sleep deep rest with Dr. Andrew Huberman. So it's a type of like yoga nidra, which is kind of just a type of meditation, but it's a 10-minute, 50-second video where you'll lay on your back and then he'll talk you through a non-sleep deep rest program, or essentially you're doing body scans and just feeling how each part of your body feels. And it's been proven that it helps slow your heart rate, it helps you relax. He talks about if you didn't get a lot of sleep the night before, for example, if you do a non-sleep deep rest protocol, like say in the middle of the day or so, it'll give you a very good second wind to keep going through the day. um I think that's everything for meditation. That sounds great.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about now, just to kind of wrap up here. We've really talked about our pillars, with the meditation, obviously, the exercise, the hot, cold, and the sun exposure. These are sort of the four pillars that we go by for really important things, essential parts of the habit, the building of a routine of health. So, in the category of just
Mm-hmm.
like miscellaneous, here are a few other things that we've talked that Mitchell and I have discussed before. So, supplement wise, my only addition to what he was saying with the fish oil is, I do take Athletic Greens, which is just kind of a comprehensive vitamin, mineral, probiotic source of all of those, and daily nutritional basis sort of, it's like a greens. So that's really good. I feel like it doesn't taste too bad as far as greens go. And I've definitely seen, higher levels of focus. I also take creatine. So those are my two. Um,
Mm,
and there are just a very few, mental even benefits to creatine. Um, helps with a few other bodily functions that can improve some mental focus. So, okay, then, like I said, in the miscellaneous category, Mitchell and I both have pets. We're both cat owners. This is something that,
oh yeah.
just sort of in a similar way to plants, allows you to care for something other than yourself that, can show you some growth and some love. And so that's great. So, to talk that, I think
Mm,
that's an important thing. Also, sleep. I mean, as a foundation of health here, sleep is always, always important. I know I try, to get 8 hours as many nights as I can. I know,
mm,
males in general can do with something like 6 to 8, whereas women usually take something like 7 to 10, I think are the numbers. Something I vaguely remember hearing, maybe through Andrew Huberman. So, I'm definitely trying to get towards that 8 hour mark. And if I don't, I do see a pretty harsh mental decline. Maybe one night I can handle that. But if we start stacking
mm.
up a few nights a week, even if they're not in a row, there is some backlash and some recovery period. That's definitely necessary. So let me think if there's anything else. Just to touch on it again, I think hobbies that encourage healthy activity or healthy settings for the activity of these hobbies. A few of these that I do, running obviously, is something I would consider a hobby. I do find it fun. Gardening, of course, we've talked about extensively. Archery is another one, having to get out, into the field and practice some of that. Camping as well. These are things that allow you to get out in nature and enjoy that process, through these really, really fun activities. So I think that's pretty much a good conclusion as far as my side of the routine. Mitchell, are there any miscellaneous things you'd like to touch on with your routine?
Yeah, I'll just kind of touch on the same points you went on as well quickly here at the end. I also take. I didn't know you took athletic greens. I get maybe I just completely forgot, but I do that as well. I think it's funny you mentioned the taste because I do like it's not bad. It's really not bad at all. But I see athletic greens have commercials and it's like it tastes tropical. Like it's fantastic and it's
Yeah,
like I don't
pushing
think
it, pushing it.
tropical. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's pushing it. It's not
yeah,
bad for sure, but
good for greens, bad for normal drink.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Since you know it's healthy, it makes it's definitely bearable.
Right, right.
Um as well with nutrition too, I'll just say it's really nice to grow your own food and eat that. That's part of why we love to garden is because we love to eat the food that we grow and we know where it came from. We know it's healthy. Tastes is so much better when you put in the work yourself rather than going and buying it from a store. It's much more satisfying to us. And with sleep, just a few quick things like we talked about at the beginning, get the sunlight in your eyes in the morning. That starts your circadian rhythm, so then at the end of the day, your rhythm, when the sun starts to go down, it knows, okay, it's getting close to bedtime. I'm going to start producing melatonin in the brain. I'm going to start becoming more tired. I try not to stay up late on the weekends much anymore. Of course, life happens, birthday parties, going out of town, vacation, whatever. But I used to be really bad about, I'd be okay going to sleep at a good time during the week, but then the weekends I would always stay up late playing video games or whatever. But so I try to do better about that now. I would put some kind of like blackout curtains in your room for sure. Make sure the sun's not coming through too early in the morning and it's going to wake you up. And as well, I like to sleep with a mask. I feel like an old person, but a little, eye mask that just
Mm.
completely darkens everything. And it has these little like spaces on the eyes, so I can open my eyes with the mask on, and it doesn't my eyelids aren't or my eyelashes aren't hitting the mask or anything. So it feels like it's not even there. Oop. but I've loved that recently. Pets as well. Like Colin said, we're cat people. I've got 2 cats. They're just like family to me. It's nice because I live alone besides them, so it feels like I have company over all the time. And I don't know if that's kind of sad, but like I don't feel lonely with my cats around, which I think is important for mental health. And it's also nice having like having pets gives you a little bit of responsibility. Cats aren't very hard at all. You just have to make sure they're being fed, make sure they have water, and clean their litter boxes, and otherwise they're very independent. But it's nice, I think, especially for men to like put some responsibility on your back. If I mean for women too, but if everything's being given to you, it doesn't feel like you're really accomplishing stuff and being rewarded for it. And hobbies, just like Colin mentioned, it's good to have a wide range of hobbies. Like gardening is obviously one of our favorite hobbies. And I've read, I don't even remember where it came from, but I think it's just some quote on the internet. But you want to have at least there's 4 categories of hobbies, and you want to have one hobby in each of the categories. So one is physical. So, say you like to go hiking, there's a physical hobby for you. Or maybe you really enjoy the gym and that's a hobby for you. That can count as a hobby as well. You want to have a hobby that is cerebral. So, maybe you like to play chess, or maybe you just like to do math in your free time. I don't know. But something cerebral to keep your brain, sharp as you get older and older. You want to have a creative hobby, so this could be like playing an instrument, for example. I'm getting into the piano here that I have. Painting, really anything that just kind of you can express your creativity in it. And then the last one would be community or service oriented. So for me, this would be like the 4-H, or well, not the 4-H. The master, well, it used to be the 4-H, but now like the Master Gardener Association. So how we go out and we'll help teach people how to garden, or we'll sell plants to them, for example. And if you can fill in those 4 categories, then it's just you feel more fulfilled with your hobbies. They're not just kind of random, and you don't have too many of the same kind.
Yeah, I think that's a
But
great approach. I mean, if people are looking
mhm.
to develop hobbies, I think that's an excellent way to go about it.
Yep. Well, I think besides that, that's pretty good for like our just kind of lifestyle routine, things that keep us happy, things we like to do. I'm sure in future episodes we'll delve a little deeper into each of these topics, but we just wanted to give a nice overview today of these type of topics for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hope you enjoyed this episode, Green Thumbs and Good Vibes. Episode 6, getting them out, guys. We hope you're enjoying them. At the end of the day, one final thing on health, it's about how you feel day to day. If you can keep a consistent level of fulfillment, happiness, and, just regulate the ups and downs of life, basically, um, then you're doing a pretty good job as long as those
Mhm.
coping mechanisms aren't destructive. And that's what we're talking about right now, ways that they can actually be additive as opposed to take away things from your health. You're using these things to handle the stresses of life, and also you are able to get a benefit from that. So that's great. We hope you
Mhm.
enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next time.